I'd like to go ahead and good morning. Call this meeting to order. It is Thursday, June 23rd for the CRA board meeting. Welcome everybody. We'll make sure we have plenty of time to take care of all the business before the CRA and give everybody the opportunity to speak that is here today. So with that, let's move on to agenda modifications. Mr. Cox.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There are several modifications. We have agenda item 5.02 that was removed from the, deleted from the agenda. Agenda item 9.01, there's an update to that budget. Agenda item 5.04, that was pulled from consent, and it is moved to section 6.01. That will be, yeah, so it'll be moved there. And then lastly, 3.03 will be moved to non-agenda items.
Excellent. Okay. Members, any questions on the modifications? All right, let's move right into presentations. 3.01, Mr. Cox.
Yes, we have an update from the DRC from the Vice Chair, Jeff Billingsley.
Mr. Billingsley, thank you so much. Yes, appreciate all that you do.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good morning, board members. My name is Jeff Billingsley. I'm currently Vice Chair of the Downtown Redevelopment Commission. In the absence of our current chair, Mr. Kyle Phelps, I was asked to present to you today an update on our last DRC meeting from May 3rd, 2022. I would like to first start out with an overview of a presentation that was given to us by Mr. Wes Townsend of McKibben Hotel Group. Mr. Townsend discussed a project his company is contemplating on the Aloft Hotel site at the corner of Tennessee Street and Monroe Street. The general scope of the project will be a mixed-use residential retail development consisting of 150 one- and two-bedroom units with structured parking deck and ground floor retail. Some preliminary discussions were had regarding whether these units would be rental or condo-type units that could be purchased. The answer to that question was the project would be a rental-type project. Additionally, we discussed unique parking dynamics with that site, particularly with the federal courthouse, as well as potential CRA participation. I understand Mr. Townsend's here today, and I'm sure he can share some additional information and answer any questions that you may have about the project. We also listened to a presentation by the Lemoyne Art Gallery. The Art for Always Master Plan project for Lemoyne Art Foundation is a multi-phased facility improvement project for the entire Lemoyne Art Foundation campus. Is located at the corner of Gaston Street and Call Street. Mrs. Raff, Executive Director, indicated that Lemoyne Art Foundation is seeking DT Medium grant funding for a ceramic workshop, storage space for the ceramic firing equipment and materials, complete renovation of the annex building on Call Street, landscaping, accessibility enhancements, and more. Renovations are expected to range between $600,000 and $1 million. The development and redevelopment scope is scalable based on funding. Lemoyne Art Foundation currently has $250,000 from a donor and may be able to raise another $200,000. The potential CRA funding ask is approximately $150,000. The DRC is going to entertain a formal request from the Lemoyne Art Foundation at a future meeting. And then lastly, DRC members were presented with a draft budget for fiscal year 2023 based on projected TIF values. I'm told by staff that we are awaiting the preliminary tax values from the property appraiser's office and will be presented a revised draft budget for our meeting on August 2nd. Any questions?
Great presentation. Any questions for Mr. Billingsley? Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I'd like to get a copy of that, please.
Sure.
Because it did go kind of quick.
Sorry, say it again.
I'd like to get a copy of that because it went kind of quick.
Okay, very good.
There's a lot of good information, and I'd like, if I could get a copy of it, I appreciate it.
Certainly.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Keep up the great work, and we appreciate you volunteering. Okay, we're on item number 3.02. Mr. Cox.
We have an update from the GFS CAC from Vice Chair Walter McDonald.
Mr. McDonald, thanks again for volunteering as well, your service.
Yes, sir. Good morning, board. On May the 9th, we had our meeting. We had 4 projects that came before us that day. We recommend approval on all 4 projects. First project that came before us that day was Somo Walls. Second project that came before us was Port Square Commercial or Community Development Corporation. That is a small business incubator that's actually being put in Griffin Heights neighborhood. We're really excited about that because that's one of the few properties that we can invest in the CRA in the Griffin Heights neighborhood. Third project that came before us was JDP Lofts, which is a condo loft building that's going on in All Saints Street. And the fourth project came for us was Simply Soul Food, or known as Early's Kitchen, which is doing an expansion on South Monroe, which we look very forward to that as well. The second thing that came before us that night was the budget approval, or recommendations for the budget for 2023. We had two recommendations. We recommended that we increase the medium to large projects from $600,000 to $1 million. We also recommended that we keep the neighborhood partnership grant as a permanent line item in the budget from here on out. Those were the things that we covered in our meeting. The last thing we covered in our meeting was right before the pandemic, we always used to have snacks or food. The staff would have snacks or food for us to eat while we were there. But since the pandemic, we haven't had that. As you know, most of us are full-time employees, work, get off at 5 o'clock, got to be there at 6 o'clock for a meeting. So if we got to stop to get something to eat, we'll be late for the meeting. So we've brought this up twice to the staff, but I think we fell on deaf ears. We don't have a magic wall that we can go behind and get a snack or something to eat like you all do. So we ask you that you might give us some direction on that as well. That includes our report for today.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
what kind of snacks you want?
Anything, sandwiches, snacks, it doesn't matter, as long as we have to. In the building we're in now, we don't even have a vending machine that we're in.
Okay, so move.
Thank you.
I don't even know if we need a motion. I think staff can take care of that. Any other questions for Mr. McDonald?
A question for
Sure.
the
Mayor Pro Tem?
Executive Director. Will the budget accommodate, Cox, the increase that is being requested from 600,000 to $1 million?
Yes, sir. Currently what we have, several projects that we'll be talking about today actually will come out of next year's budget, not this current year's budget. So we have accommodated, if you all approve those items, everything will come out of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Everything will come out of that?
Well, the items that, so moving it from 600,000 to $1 million, the projects that you all approve will come out of that. So it'll start at $1 million, and then the projects you all approve will bring it down to, I think, somewhere around 500,000, give or take.
So I had the same question during my briefing. So, and we can have, obviously, when we get on the items themselves. But to answer your question, yes. What is being proposed not only is dealing with this year's fiscal budget, but we are now deciding to spend next year's fiscal budget as well. So that is something that we will talk about as we move forward.
Yeah.
So we are on the consent agenda. Item 5.02 has been pulled by, no, it's been deleted, excuse me. 5.04 has been pulled by Commissioner Porter. We'll come to that in just a second. So we are on the consent agenda, which consists of 5.01 and 5.03. Do we have any public comment on the consent?
We do. We actually have 2 speaker cards.
Which item?
We don't have any on, speakers on agenda items. On public comments, part 4, public comments on agenda items.
No, ma'am. We're taking, we'll take public comment on the items as we get there.
Okay.
So we're on the consent agenda. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on 5.01 or 5.03?
Doesn't appear I have a speaker card.
Okay,
Move
excellent.
acceptance of the consent agenda.
All right, the consent agenda has been properly moved by Commissioner Williams, Diane Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Okay, now we are on item, what is now 6.01, which was previously 5.04. That was pulled by Commissioner Porter. And Mr. Cox for the introduction, then we'll go to public comment, and then Commissioner Porter, I'll immediately come to you to lead us off, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have been approached by the owners, by the tenant of 524 North MLK. The CRA owns that property. They are looking to own the property they currently lease, and what they have asked us is to try to figure out a way to own the property. From our last meeting, staff was asked to come up with a way that we could essentially show that they are financially stable and sell the property at a later date. So what we have come up with is a lease agreement, 4 years. They will essentially put money in an account, $1,400 for 48 months. If they have that money in that account, it ends up being $67,200. They pay that to the CRA, and we will transfer the property to them. They're required to keep the operations going for the next 5 years. So if anything were to go wrong, the property would revert back to the CRA. But essentially, those are some of the parameters in the lease agreement. As of right now, they've agreed to those terms, and we are waiting your approval. We have several options. We can approve that. We can deny it, or keep what we currently have, the 3-year lease agreement, or we can go with something else that you all have in mind.
So right now, currently, the lease agreement is $10 for 10 years?
$10 per year for 3 years, a 3-year lease.
$10 a year for 3 years, for a total of $30.
Yes, sir.
What's being proposed is that they put in an escrow account $1,400 a month.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do. We actually have 2 speakers. I have Mr. Jim Bellamy and we have Mr. Mike Donovan. Your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Bellamy
Jim?
here?
Yeah, take your time.
Who's our second speaker?
Mike Donovan.
Oh, Mike. Morning, Mr. Bellamy. Thanks for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. My address is 532 West Georgia Street, whichever you want to take, or either 524 North Martin Luther King Boulevard. I live both places. Right. I was thinking what I had to say about this anymore. I think we've discussed it quite a bit. I think you all understand where I'm coming from. And I know that the city has said that, and the CRA has said that they want the best in the equity of Frenchtown. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give the community some ownership in terms of what's going on in the community and some of the facilities that we have in the community. We need to do that. And at this point, all I can say is thank you very much for considering it. And we would appreciate your support. $1,400 is not a problem for us. We don't have a problem with that. We don't have a problem with what you're asking in terms of costs either. As a matter of fact, we appreciate it. And thank you very much. That's all I got to say, y'all.
Thank you.
Questions?
No questions. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Bellamy.
Jack?
Oh, Commissioner Porter, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just, the reason I pulled this was not because I intend to oppose it, but because I do think this is significant for the CRA to do and unusual for the CRA to do. And so I did want there to be discussion. The only question I have, which maybe you could answer, Mr. Bellamy or Mr. Norvell, part of the discussion we had at our last meeting was about, of course, the use of the premises and there's so many different community benefits that come out of that site, but especially, the feeding of the kids, feeding the community. And I wanted to make sure that that was captured, whether it's in item 7, use of premises during lease term, FNIA shall utilize the premises for kitchen share program, the neighborhood hub, and farmers market. Is that incorporated in those 3 programs?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we also provide child care meals to daycare centers. We have about 400 kids we feed during the fall and spring of the year. We don't have as many this summer, but we also are part of the Children's Service Council, where we are providing some meals for some of the programs for Mount Olive and Key Academy and several others. So we intend to, this year coming up, to apply for Children's Services Council to be able to provide meals for children and their families.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted confirmation and clarification on that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, our next public speaker.
We have Mr. Mike Donovan. Name and address for the record, sir, and you have 3 minutes.
Mike Donovan, attorney with Legal Services in North Florida, 2119 Delta Boulevard. I'm the attorney for the Frenchtown Neighborhood Improvement Association. I was really here in case there were questions that I could assist with. I just want to say thank you for looking at this. The board voted on Tuesday to unanimously agree to the staff proposal. We're prepared to sign today if that's appropriate. I probably shouldn't say anything else. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, any other public comment?
Not on this item.
All right, so open it up for discussion. We'll go to Commissioner Porter first since she pulled the item, and then I'll come to Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I'd like to move acceptance of staff recommendation.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor signify. Any other discussion? I'm sorry, Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for everyone who's worked on this over the years. I just had a question about the 4-year term before the buyout, and then you mentioned 5 years maintaining services. So what's the full commitment to maintain it being a farmer's market? How many years in the agreement?
I believe 9,
Okay.
4 years and then the 5 after.
That's what I was asking. Was the 5 on top of the 4 or 5 total? So for 9 years, we'll be guaranteed to have that benefit
Correct.
in the community? Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Excellent. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I just wanted to highlight the fact that doing this, partnering with Frenchtown Neighborhood Improvement Association, helps us deal with food insecurity because they're providing meals in places where kids don't always have meals. And I know that the more they do this and word gets around, they're going to be really busy doing it even the more, not just in Frenchtown, but throughout this city. And partnering with the Children's Services Council is going to help even more. And I can see it even beyond children. I can see y'all doing maybe some Meals on Wheels. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying there's a possibility. So the sky is the limit when you know the truth. And I think that this is a great opportunity for our community to work with government to make these things happen in regards to food insecurity, which helps the city with our priorities in improving the quality of life and having an impact on poverty. So thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for iron sharpening iron. I think we got a good solution here.
Excellent. Any further comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Mr. Mayor, recognize Ms. Cheryl Collier-Brown, who has
Absolutely.
also been an integral part of these negotiations. I want to thank her for what she has contributed as well. I think this is a tremendous partnership, and we certainly look forward to working with you all as we go forward, both in this capacity, but also as a volunteer in helping to make the project successful. Thank you,
Excellent.
Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. We are on item number 7.01.
Mr. Chair, this is a request for a grant of $346,000 for JVP Lofts LLC, mixed-use development located at 506 All Saints Street. Sherry Curtis will give a brief presentation on the project.
Curtis, thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners, CRA board members. 7.01 is JVP Lofts. JVP Lofts, a request for $346,000. The JVP Lofts LLC is looking to turn this vacant, blighted lot into a 5-unit mixed-use development, which is targeted towards young professionals. The project will consist of over 5,300 square feet, housing 5 residential lofts, a multipurpose studio, a kitchenette, and exterior patio space. The CRA requested funds will be used to assist with site work and construction of the project. The proposed project is consistent with the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan and the Greater Frenchtown Southside Strategic Plan. The project is located in the Multimodal Transportation District and the All Saints Neighborhood A zoning district, which is intended for a low-intensity pedestrian residential character. The development can claim on-street public parking within 1,000 feet, allowing the site not to have a parking requirement. The mixed-use development hosts to boost economic development by providing multi-purpose studio space to small businesses and local entrepreneurs. The developer has agreed to provide several community benefits, which is outlined in your agenda item. The Greater Frenchtown Southside Community Redevelopment Agency Citizens Advisory Committee has recommended approval of $346,000 grant for this mixed-use development with the following conditions. Bank financing must be approved and documentation of the remaining $11,000 for JVP Lofts LLC to complete the project. Staff is requesting, in addition to the CAC recommendation, to authorize staff to negotiate the terms of the grant disbursements. This concludes our presentation, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Kenneth Jones, who's the managing member of JVP Lofts, is also here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Okay. Where's the developers here?
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Good to see you, Mr. Jones. You want to come tell us a little bit about the project?
Morning, Mayor and Commission. Thank you all so much for considering our project. One of the big aspects of this project, and I'll say this as a Tallahassean myself, is the event space. We're making the event space free to nonprofit 501c3s from Leon County for up to 10 years, that they will have 8 hours a month to be able to use. So therefore, the Frenchtown organization, dental clinics, and a number of other entities that are needed, especially in this area. You'll notice in some of the support letters I have, others, Dami Station and others, speak about having an event space to be able to use, especially for nonprofits. So beyond trying to make sure that we help to cut into this brain drain where students graduate from FAM, UFSU, and TCC on a Saturday and leave town on a Monday, to provide some professional housing. Of course, the number of other things, of course, we've seen, especially the public safety issue that we've seen in the last week along Railroad Square and in this area. So having more eyes on the street, taking the empty lot off the street, and those things. But I'm welcome to any questions that you have and to answer them as best that I can. But thank you.
Have you secured funding for your project yet, or is it contingent on the CRA?
It is contingent on the CRA, and that letter is in there. The term sheet letter is in this presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions to the developer? Yeah.
I would like to move staff recommendation that we fund this project. I've known Mr. Jones for years and know the good work that he's done in Tallahassee, and I'm excited to see that, Jones, that you're behind this project and bringing this to the community. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your interest in developing in Tallahassee. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things about this project because, you know, we often talk about smaller lots and what can be developed and development has to take over the whole block and be a mega project. But I think this shows that even in a neighborhood like this, you can take a single lot and really develop something of value, lot by lot, diversifying the type of infrastructure you're seeing in a community. And I think that adds a lot. I'm in full support of this project. Thank you.
Excellent. Any further comments? Mr. Jones, I'm going to support the project too because your reputation is spectacular. We appreciate you investing in Tallahassee, and I do think it's great. If you decide to change and not have community space and do more housing on the first floor, I wouldn't complain about that either because it just adds more stock into the community. So I'm going to vote in favor of it. However, what I was talking, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, to the executive director, we need to have a conversation about how we move forward when we are going to allocate funding out of budget year. Right now, it's first come, first serve. Whoever gets to us first is going to have the opportunity to spend that money for 2023. I'm not comfortable with that process. And at the end of the meeting, I'm going to bring it up under my time that Mr. Cox bring us back some type of policy. Again, I'm supporting you today, and I think it's a great project. But this is a slippery slope for us to go down because it basically means whoever gets to us first has the first shot at getting funded. So with that, with the motion on the table, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0.
Lastly, I would like to say I thank the advisory committee. They, as they say, without the snacks, they work real hard over there. And definitely the CRA staff, Mr. Cox and Ms. Curtis and their team. I mean, it's just been wonderful, especially again as a native of Tallahassee. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. We're on item number 7.02.
It's a funding request for $294,026 by FT Squared Community Development Corporation. It's a minority business accelerator, professional office space, training, event, and retail space development project on 1211 South Tharp Street. Ms. Sheila Williams will present.
Thank you very much. As we mentioned, this is a funding request from FT Squared Community Business Solutions, I believe it is. The property is located at 1211 West Tharp Street, and their funding request is for $294,026. The actual officers of FT Squared Community Development Corporation and Community Business Solutions, Inc. include Mr. Kenneth Kinney, Lenoris Barber, Rashay Greenlee, Alwyn Smith, and Jaworski Vance. The subject property is currently a vacant one-story office commercial strip building, which was built around 1985 and is approximately 8,720 square feet and 576 square feet of ancillary use. FT Squared's vision is to repurpose the building into a minority business accelerator for business startups and business expansions. It will be a mixed-use facility consisting of several office spaces, retail storefront, a conference room, and more. The development or developers are offering some community benefits as it relates to minority women business enterprise, meeting with tempo, at least having one of their officers to meet with the Office of Economic Vitality. They're offering below market rate retail and office space at no greater than $17 a square foot for at least 2 consecutive years, 90 days after obtaining the certificate of completion, and they're talking about job creation. The applicant's estimated milestone timeline for completion of the redevelopment or renovation project is fall 2022 through summer 2023. We find as staff that this project is consistent with the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan and the Greater Frenchtown Southside 5-year Strategic Investment Plan. The agenda item was reviewed by City Resource Management and the City Attorney's Office. Also, the developers did meet with the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee on April 21st, and the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee did recommend that the CRA board approve this request. Outlined in your agenda item were some options as it relates to this project. Option 1 would be to approve the $294,026 request from the developers with the conditions outlined in the agenda item. Or option 2, do not approve the request for $294,026 as outlined in the agenda and provide staff with some direction. Staff is recommending option 1 that the CRA board approve the funding request with the conditions as outlined in the agenda item. And we do have representatives here from FT Squared and Community Business Solutions. And along with the CRA, we can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, I do not have any speaker cards on this item.
Okay. So open it up for discussion. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Mr. Mayor, I move staff recommendation based on the fact that the advisory committee has approved this and that it is in line with what our plan is. I offer that we accept staff recommendation of option number 1.
Second.
Okay, it's been probably moved by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comment? I've got questions. So how is this program different from the Peacock Center, which we have awarded money to just a year or two ago? Because I thought that was also a business incubator program. And are we competing against each other? Your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Rishay Greenlee. My address 818 West Brevard Street. And I represent Community Business Services. I'm one of the accountants at Community Business Services. The Peacock Training Center is a training center that's ran by Mount Olive. Community Business Services is actually accounting and tax office. It started as an accounting and tax office in 1968, and we currently operate as an accounting and tax office and a business consulting office, as well as a business operations support service center for individuals and businesses in the greater Frenchtown and Bond communities. So it is not, the Peacock Center is not a part of this project.
I know, but the Peacock Center, correct me if I'm wrong, is a business incubator program as well that we funded through the CRA, and we're creating another business incubator program.
The Peacock Training Center is it helps with employment for individuals. They go for QuickBooks training and skills for like job readiness skills. It's not a part of this project.
And Mr. Mayor,
yes,
and Mr. Cox, this happened before your time, but we approved it as a training center, so much so that we included some performance measures that X number of folks would go through and receive training at the Peacock Training Center. So it was, I don't recall it being a business incubator. I recall it being a training center right after the pandemic. So I see them as being different because their goals are different. The incubator is for businesses to be able to come in and do something very similar to what Domi does, but they're going to do it over on Tharp Street. It may be a different clientele, but it's open to the public. Unlike the Peacock Center, they were offering training, specialized training in accounting and Microsoft and those kinds of things. I know this because I went over and toured the facility. I was invited over by Mr. Barber to tour the facility and saw it set up to do training. And so I'm comfortable with them being two different goals, two different missions. Not to say that they could not somehow cross paths, because once you provide the training, folks could then, do their business in the incubator.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Cox, the funding is coming out of the contingency fund?
No, sir. It's coming out of this current year's medium and large funding.
And leaves a balance of $43,000 after. So the money is there, but once this one is done, according to the agenda item, there will be $43,000 remaining.
Correct.
I misread, because I read that it was coming out of the contingency fund.
the medium and large master contingency.
Well, it does say,
Right. Yeah, it does say the contingency fund, that it's coming out of the contingency, not the operating.
But it's specialized, specific contingency.
I mean, it's coming out of the line item for medium and large. I'm not,
All right, if it's a typo, it's a typo, and that's cool. Want to make sure. There's a big difference between a contingency fund line, which is supposed to be our rainy day fund, which would drain it down to $48,000, versus if it was coming out of the operating line, which is where most of these type of projects would come from.
But I think,
Let's be clear on.
no, it is out of the operating. It's not out of contingency.
Okay.
Ms. Curtis is going to clear it up.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The project is being funded by the Medium and Large Capital Master Project Contingency Fund.
So it is coming out.
So it's a contingency fund for our medium and large capital improvement projects.
Yeah.
So it is coming out of that fund.
It's a specialized contingency, not an overall contingency.
Yeah, exactly. It's a contingency fund, and it's just the name, but it's a contingency fund for our medium and large redevelopment projects.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Mello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to caution us on when we look at operators getting into the business of picking winners and losers. As a redevelopment agency, what we're really considering is this area, this building, and is this project revitalizing the area? Because I really don't want to get into the business every time we are looking at a project, we're asking if there's another operator in the area that it would compete with, because that's a dangerous road to go down. But I think if you look at the corridor on Tharp Street, and this building and some of the surrounding buildings have had a lack of activity and development for quite a few years. And so this is really reactivating a space and a corridor that hasn't been activated. So for that reason, I can support the project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, aye. Passes 4-1 with the mayor in dissent. We are on item number 7.03. Mr. Cox.
Request for $213,111 for Simply Soul Food, Inc., Early's Kitchen, the restaurant expansion, Phase 1, located at 1458 South Monroe Street. Sheila Williams will present.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you. This is the funding request for $213,111 from Simply Soul Food, Inc., doing business as Early's Kitchen. It's the restaurant expansion proposed as Phase 1, located at 1458 South Monroe Street. The proposed project is a 2,400 plus or minus gross square foot addition, adding 1,200 square feet plus or minus a heated and cool space on the first floor or story, and adding 1,200 plus or minus square feet as a second story addition, potentially a rooftop outdoor seating area. The actual officers of Simply Soul Food, Inc., doing business as Early's Kitchen, are James or Jay and Anita Morrell. The current on-site structure is approximately 3,000 square feet and is currently utilized as a 50-person seating restaurant, which currently serves 2 day parts, I think it's called, breakfast and lunch only. The project is to expand the restaurant to a full-service, modern, industrial design restaurant serving 3 meal parts, and that would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, increasing the square footage to seat at least 150 patrons. Staff has worked with the applicants, and they are willing to provide community benefits as it relates to meeting the goals of MWBE, and at least one officer from the organization will meet with the Office of Economic Vitality to identify programs and opportunities to train qualified residents in the Greater Frenchtown Southside District for employment opportunities at Early's Kitchen. The estimated timeline for the development will span from now, June 2022, through September 2023, as outlined in your agenda packets. Soul Foods request for funding for the restaurant expansion is consistent with the Greater Frenchtown Southside Redevelopment Plan and the Greater Frenchtown Southside 5-year Strategic Investment Plan. The application and the agenda packet were reviewed by City Resource Management and the City Attorney's Office. The applicant did present before the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee at their April 21st, 2002 meeting, and the request for funding of the $213,111 was recommended for approval from the Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee. There are 2 options listed in your agenda packets regarding this item. You have options number 1, approve Simply Soul Food, Inc. doing business as Early's Kitchen for $213,111 in CRA funds with the conditions outlined in the agenda item. And you also have option 2, do not approve Simply Soul Food, Inc. and provide staff with additional direction. Staff recommends that you approve option 1, approve Simply Soul Food, Inc. doing business as Early's Kitchen for $213,111 in CRA grant funds with conditions as outlined in the agenda item. Representatives with Simply Soul Food doing business as Early's Kitchen, Mr. Jay Morrell, is here, and along with CRA staff, can and will answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Excellent.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I move staff recommendation for option number 1.
Second.
I'll second it as well. Any further comment?
I'm just happy that we are developing and bringing more expansive eateries
This is great.
into these communities, and I'm ready to go eat.
I agree.
We go get some snacks.
All right, motion's been made by Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox, seconded by the mayor. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Okay, do we have anything else to come before us under the Greater Frenchtown Southside District Policy Formation and Direction, Mr. Cox?
Yes.
7.04.
04, excuse me. Absolutely. Please go forward with 7.04.
Recommendation approval of project modification funding for South Monroe Streets walls, redevelopment project located at 1303 and 1323 South Monroe. Sheila Williams will give a brief presentation.
All right, Ms. Williams?
All right, thank you. This request is a recommendation of approval for project modification of funding for South Monroe Street walls, SOMA walls, redevelopment project located at 1303 and 1323 South Monroe Street. Mr. Burrow Demerol with Cascade Garden LLC, Demerol International LLC, the property owner, submitted the project modification to the CRA board for development of the properties. The board at its May 2020 meeting previously approved the project as adaptive reuse building renovations and on-site improvements. Due to some extenuating circumstances, including but not limited to American Acts disability accessibility standards, fire separation requirements, new construction and site improvements versus adaptive reuse and building renovations and site improvements is needed. The proposed SOMA Walls development is intended to be a commercial, retail, and arts and entertainment destination. Mr. Demerol did provide a project update at the March 7, 2022 Greater Frenchtown Southside meeting and at the March 24th CRA board meeting. He also provided project modification at the April 21st Greater Frenchtown Southside meeting. The applicant is requesting that the CRA board, or the CRA's board, approval of the project modification and continued approval of funding, $560,000 for new construction and $216,000 for partially undergrounding applicable utility data lines. The project modifications include building a new building, construction of 22,000 square feet instead of the renovation of the previously on-site building that was 33,000 square feet, along South Monroe. The Soma Walls project will still host the 15 rotating canvases nestled among the commercial properties, providing multiple lunch and dining options, retail service, and office space. The total estimated cost for the renovations is now approximately $6,117,000 and includes, that number does include potentially the $560,000 of CRA assistance. The Greater Frenchtown Southside Citizens Advisory Committee at its most recent meeting, April 21st, 2022, did recommend approval of the $560,000 for new construction as opposed to adaptive reuse and renovations of the prior buildings, and they also recommended approval of the $216,000 for partially undergrounding utilities and/or the data lines with the conditions as outlined in the agenda. The developer is offering various community benefits as it relates to MWBE, meeting with the Office of Economic Vitality and hiring citizens from the Greater Frenchtown Southside District, also meeting with the City of Tallahassee's Tempo program. This agenda item was reviewed by the City of Tallahassee Resource Management and the City Attorney's Office. Staff does recommend, there were several recommendations in your agenda packet. Options number 1 was to approve the $560,000. Option number 2 was for you not to approve the $560,000 and provide staff with direction. Option number 3 was to approve the $216,000 for partially undergrounding the applicable utility and data lines. And option number 4 was for you to recommend not to approve the $216,000 for partially undergrounding utilities and providing staff with direction. Staff recommends that the CRA board approves the item as option 1, approve the project modification request for $516,000 in construction grant funds to Cascades Garden LLC, Demerol International, for Soma Walls redevelopment project as outlined in the agenda item. And option number 3, approve the use of the grant funds estimated at $216,000 to partially underground applicable utility lines or data lines overhead that front the Soma Walls development, as coordinated and approved by the City of Tallahassee Electric Department or applicable city department, the property owner, and the CRA. I do not see Mr. Demerol in the audience. I don't know if he's online, but we can attempt to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. Thank you for your time.
Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Okay, let's open it up. Discussion?
I'd move option 1.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Option number 1.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Matlow. We'll go back to the Mayor Pro Tem and then Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on, so this is a grant that is being given as a forgivable loan? That's what I'm trying to understand.
That is correct.
Okay. And it will be forgivable if the conditions are met that are outlined in the
That is correct.
contract? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Question,
I got a question on point.
on point. Mayor Pro Tem, you made the motion to accept option number 1, but the recommended action was options 1 and 3.
Okay, 1 and 3.
Okay.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that, Commissioner Matlow, as a second?
Yes, but
Okay.
questions, yes.
You're recognized.
First question, the funding source says future yield capital projects, including reserve funds. We're okay with that, Mr. Mayor? Cox?
Yes.
Okay. And second question, on option 3, the option 3 is approve the use of grant funds to underground utilities on the development site, but the agenda item also contemplates new poles not actually bearing the utility. So are we approving any type of electrical change, or is it guaranteed to be underground utilities, or do we know what the electrical change would look like for the $216,000?
We have some idea what it'll look like, but it could change if new data, comes along in the future. What is buried, initially doesn't account for what could come later. But the idea is to minimize the amount of wires that are currently on the poles, to remove the overhead, so it's visually is less cluttered, but there still will be poles there.
Okay. So is the $216,000 actually bearing utilities, and is it getting the city match for that type of project?
Yes, well,
Okay.
yes. I mean, so it's a 25, 75%. So we would pay 75%, city would pay 25. And there is some bearing that.
Okay. So it is going towards the undergrounding?
Yes.
That portion of it is? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But it won't all be underground?
Correct.
There'll be new poles, but a portion of it will be undergrounded? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Commissioner Matlow, I agree with you. We had this conversation at the last meeting. I agree 100% that we should try to underground the entire South Monroe Street corridor, along with all of our major corridors. I think that that is an ambitious goal, but something that we should always keep in mind when we're doing redevelopment projects. Yeah. Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox.
I agree, but I think it's also wise to do it as we go.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody won't be able to convert.
Correct.
Quickly, but we go as we go.
Absolutely.
Do that not only on South Monroe, but throughout the city where we can. Understanding too that it is expensive.
Yes.
To do.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a motion on the table for staff recommendation of option number 1 and option number 3, as made by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously 5-0. Now I believe we've conducted all the business before the Greater Frenchtown Southside District Policy Formation and Direction, and we can move to the Downtown District Policy Formation and Direction. Do we have any items before us?
No, sir.
Okay. So do we have any other business to come before the CRA?
9.01.
901.
Any?
9.0.
901.
901.
Excuse me, 9.01. Yes, thank you.
So,
Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we have before you is a review of the draft fiscal year 2023 CRA operating and capital budget for downtown and Greater Frenchtown Southside. Sherry Curtis will give a brief presentation.
Ms. Curtis, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. CRA board members, this is a brief presentation on the proposed budget for fiscal year 23. The agenda item 9.101 is seeking your comments for fiscal year 2023 proposed budget based on the estimated tax values from the Leon County Property Appraiser's Office. The proposed budget using projected tax values was presented to the CAC members on May 9th and to the Downtown Redevelopment Commission on May 3rd for comments, which are outlined in your agenda item. The estimated tax increment revenues for both districts shows an increase over the fiscal year 2022 tax increment revenues. The Greater Frenchtown Southside District shows an increase of 16%, while the Downtown District shows an increase of 14%. The proposed operating expenses for fiscal year 2023 for both districts is $947,615, representing 12% of the estimated fiscal year 23 tax increment. This includes the internal service funds, expenses, and a proposed 5% salary increase consistent with the general City of Tallahassee employees. We had some fiscal year 22 pending budget amendments. These were requests that you all just recently approved. The FT Squared Business Incubator requesting $294,000 for renovations, as well as the Providence Harder Hills, which was approved on consent for an additional $75,000 to complete the placemaking project. For the Greater Frenchtown Southside District, the fiscal year 2023 proposed budget expenses, we are just highlighting a few of the proposed expenses that have changed and were not included in last year's budget. You just approved the JVP Lofts LLC for $346,000, as well as the Simply Soul Food Early's Kitchen renovations for $213,000. The CAC, at their last meeting, requested that the medium and large capital master project contingency fund be increased from $600,000 to $1 million to accommodate more redevelopment projects. And the CRA board, you all, as well as the Citizens Advisory Committee, recently inquired about an heirs property program. And so we are looking at putting $250,000 over the next 2 years for that program. We're working with the Community Housing and Resilience Department in developing the program and hope to bring more information to you at a future meeting. The CAC also recommended adding $50,000 to the Neighborhood Partnership Grant Program for fiscal year 2023. To give you a summary of the proposed budget for Greater Frenchtown Southside District, the budget shows $4.8 million in revenue, $522,000 in personnel and operating expenses, $744,000 in contractual expenses, and $3 million in non-contractual expenses, leaving $548,000 in funds available for future programming and projects. For the downtown district, tables 8 and 9 in your agenda items shows the expenses. We are highlighting just a few in this presentation. The second year of debt service for the Capital Cascades parking garage loan for $593,648. Operating expenses for the Capital Cascades parking garage for $227,000. The first year of TIF reimbursement for phase 1 of the Cascades redevelopment project, estimating at $551,000. And staff is proposing to hire a consultant to help us update the downtown redevelopment plan and create a strategic investment plan. And we're looking at $200,000 for that. So for the downtown summary of proposed expenses for fiscal year 23, we're looking at $5.7 million in revenue, $425,000 in proposed personnel and operating expenses, $1.4 million in contractual expenses, $600,000 in non-contractual expenses, and $3.2 million in funds available for future programs and projects. The draft budget will be presented at a second review to the Citizens Advisory Committee on July 11th and to the Downtown Redevelopment Commission on August the 2nd. The draft budget will be presented to you all in September 8th for adoption at a public hearing. This concludes our presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Open it up, public comment.
There are no speaker cards on this item.
Okay, excellent. Let's open it up for discussion, questions, comments. So the entire proposed budget represents $5.7 million.
For the downtown district.
For downtown.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The entire proposed budget, 5.7. Okay.
Move to accept the draft.
Okay. There's a motion on the table made by Commissioner Matlow,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Porter. Commissioner Porter with question.
Thank you. I just have a clarifying question. So for the Cascades Park public parking, we're definitely losing money on that. At least that's what's projected, or for this past year. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the revenue was $170,000 this year. Our operating expenses were $221,000. And then in addition to that, we're also paying $500-something thousand for debt service for the garage.
Yes, for debt service for the garage, because we took out a loan for the purchase of that garage. Okay. So the parking garage has been generating revenue, but we do have expenses coming out of the parking garage as well. So the revenue that's being generated by the individuals that are taking advantage of the parking garage is bringing enough revenue for us to pay for those expenses that are being generated.
Okay.
Outside of the debt service, though.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, motion on the table made by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Seeing no further questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed. Passes unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is that all the business that's coming before us today?
Yes, sir.
All right, we are on public comment on non-agenda items. If anybody's here wishes to speak, please fill out a speaker card and walk us through public comment.
Thank you very much. At this time, we do have 4 speaker cards, and we have Mr. Stanley Sims, followed by Ms. Tawana Thompson, followed by Mr. Ray Kowinski, and Christy Vaughn. Name and address for the record, Mr. Sims, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Stanley Sims. I'm at 1320 Avondale Way. And you know, Mr. Mayor, you and I agree on something. When you brought to light about funding programs for the year ahead, that's a red light. And so I wanted to say, you and I have found something we agree on. I just wanted to harness that moment. The second thing that I would like to talk to the CRA about, I was on this past weekend a Zoom meeting with the Poor People's Campaign, and cities all across America are using the CRA to relieve inflation and the cost of living, home buying, rent. They've come up with some very creative ways, not just for citizens, but for businesses, nonprofits. And today was a good day to be Black and to be in the CRA. I just want to say that today was a good day for us. Good quality proposals came forth with good plans, and I saw equity. I see some hope, and the comments, even all the way down to the snacks. It was a good day to be Black today. I'm feeling my Blackness. And so I just want to thank the CRA. Ms. Sherry, you did a tremendous job today in bringing clarity to these projects. But I just want to strongly recommend to you, Mr. Cox, to look at what St. Pete is doing to alleviate inflation. They're even also, for individuals within the CRA that purchase electric cars, they are doing the adaptations on their homes. These are some of the creative ideas that they are doing to relieve some of the inflation on poor working Americans. Again, thank you, staff, thank you, CRA, and thank you to this commission for beginning to answer the problems of the people in the CRA district, Frenchtown. Kenny Barber got some money, so I'm hoping he buy me a little lunch.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Tawana Thompson, followed by Mr. Ray Kowinski, followed by Ms. Christy Vaughn, followed by Mr. West Townsend.
Good morning. My name is Tawana Thompson, 2940 Grady Road. I'm the Director of Development for the Tallahassee Housing Authority. We're not on the agenda, but I did want to make you all aware. We sent a letter to the members and the staff regarding our Phase 2 of our Orange Avenue redevelopment. We're closing on Phase 1 next month. We plan to close on Phase 2 in January. But again, we have a funding gap. We had a $10 million funding gap due to the cost of materials, the cost of labor, everything going up, and our application was submitted in 2020. We were awarded 9% tax credits through some value engineering. We've been able to cut that cost. We looked at downsizing the project, but then it would downsize the amount of money we could borrow, so there was no net gain there. And so we're back to at least give you an update and tell you where we are. The project is shovel-ready and 94% funded. And so, again, we're looking to close in January, and I wanted to introduce our developer partner, Ray Kunyansky, who's also the finance guy and does all our numbers for us.
Good morning. I'm Ray Kunyansky with Columbia Residential at 1718 Peachtree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. It's nice to see you all again in person. It's been an unusual few years. I wish I weren't here to make this kind of a presentation, but it is what it is, given the environment that we've all been working in for the last several years. I don't need to tell you too much about what's happened in the construction market. I know you're all well aware of it. Some costs have gone up as much as 300%, some as little as 18%. Some things have come back down just slightly, which are sort of helping to balance things a little bit. But the net result of having priced this transaction through an application in 2020 to reality in 2022, as Tawana said, is a net $10.5 million gap in our transaction. How are we trying to fill that gap? The first piece of it is Florida Housing Finance Corporation came out with a proposal allowing developers such as ourselves and partnerships to come to them for 3 different alternatives. You could work under one of them. One was additional home dollars, another was additional National Housing Trust Fund dollars, and the third was additional tax credits. The property doesn't really qualify for National Housing Trust Fund or home because of the structure of the deal being mixed income, and so thus we're asking for additional tax credits, which actually nets substantially more dollars. Each of the other 2 programs have a cap of about $2 million. The tax credit addition of just shy of $500,000 a year will net about $4.2 million of real money coming back into the project. In addition, we were successful in working with our lenders to convince them to use 2022 rents because of some increases in area median income. The rent structure has changed somewhat, which basically allows us to get about $2 million additional permanent financing. And then lastly, we have chosen to defer more of the developer fee as part of this process, about another $650,000, which gets us to a net position of about $4.75 million in the actual gap of where we are. The urgency of the situation is that to apply for the additional tax credits with Florida Housing Finance Corp., which we have done, we have to go through their underwriting process beginning in September to get to a final board meeting and decision at the end of October. And in order to meet those deadlines, we have to have commitments for the balance of the gap. So here we are. And we are talking to you all, we're talking to the county. We're doing the same thing, basically, that we did with Phase 1 with a much shorter timeline in order to accomplish the task. So we met with staff a week or so ago once we got all of this information together. I know Brenda sent letters and documentation and information to each of you last week. Our deadline structure has become more clear to us in the last couple of days. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. Our next public speaker.
Thank you. Our next.
Well, I got a question. So the $10 million deficit is on Phase 1 or proposed Phase 2?
Phase 2. Phase 1, we have completely settled with all the financing, and we're closing by July 22nd. We are well along the path there. If you haven't been down Orange Avenue, you should go. Most of the property has been demolished. We're in the final stages of demolition so that we can start construction immediately after the closing.
And when did we know that we had a $10 million deficit on Phase 2?
We've known this for about 2.5 weeks as we have been working with the contractor to reprice. One of the issues that we have is we're repricing in a marketplace that's constantly changing. You can't get commitments of materials until you're ready to actually order. So the pricing is a bit of a conundrum.
So your contractor sprung on you 2.5 weeks ago that there's a $10 million deficit on Phase 2?
Well, we've been in a conversation with everyone about this now for quite some time, knowing that what's happening in the marketplace with escalating prices. So yes, we knew there was going to be a gap. This transaction was originally priced back in early 2020, and again in November of 2020. And now it's 2 years later. The more times you go into the market to price, the greater the likelihood of escalation because of the nature of the beast. So you don't do it as frequently as some would think. And so this is where we are.
And does the $10 million deficit include the contractor's fees, or are the contractor's fees above and beyond the $10 million deficit?
No, the whole thing includes contractor's fee.
What are the
and everything
contractor's
else? It's actually in the chart that was sent to you, but they are limited by law to 6% general conditions, 6% overhead, and 2% profit. So that's the max they can do. We are one of the things we're working with them on is getting them to reduce the overall total fee. Instead of taking a 6% overhead general conditions fee, they're taking a 4% fee, so they had already cut that in the course of the bid. They've actually been pretty good about working through those things.
And so you are using the same contractor for phase one, for phase two? When you bid this out, did you bid for phase one and phase two?
No,
or?
We're actually in a hard bid now. All of our numbers came from Mad Dog, which is the contractor who won the bid in phase one.
Mad Dog's the contractor?
Yeah, well, they're
Phase
the
one.
contractor in phase one. We have not selected a contractor in phase two, but their bid was $2.5 million below the other three bidders in phase one. So we already knew that their pricing was better. And so we have been pricing with them in the course of the process. And we are now actually publishing, there have been ads published for a full, a standard procurement bid process.
Has the Tallahassee Housing Authority torn the houses down out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've torn everything down?
Not everything.
Not everything. There's
according to their schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. So the schedule for demolition was to demolish everything that was in the block bounded by Brighton, Putnam, Country Club, and Orange, which is where phases 1 and 2 will go. And then in probably another 6 to 8 months, take down the balance of the site. I believe there are still 4 families who are living on site. The other 196 households have been relocated successfely, and the authority took great care in that. The authority has invested about $3.2 million in asbestos abatement, demolition, and relocation, none of which they get back. That's not part of the budgets for building phases 1 and 2. So that's dollars that they spent in order to prepare the site for redevelopment.
Mr. Chair, when you finish, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the Housing Authority moved forward with the demolition of the houses to date on schedule. We relocated. We promised first right of refusal to move into the new property.
Correct.
But now I'm hearing there's a $10 million deficit to build the new property all the way through phase 2.
For the second phase, that is correct.
And so what happens if you can't make up the delta?
Then we'll give the credits back to the state, and the $39 million that we have already put in place will evaporate and go back. The investor won't invest, the lender won't lend, the state won't put tax credits in, and we will have been 90% funded on a project that's ready to go that we can't build.
Mr. Chair, while you catch your breath.
Commissioner Diane Williams. Wait, first of all, let me say I appreciate you reaching out to my office. I had reconstructive shoulder surgery, so I have been out.
I noticed.
But I really look forward to sitting down with Ms. Williams and you and the team and really being brought up to speed on exactly what is going on out there with this project. This is, on the face level, it's disheartening. I'll be honest with you, and eye-opening.
It is. I agree with you. I wish we weren't here to have this conversation, but this is the unfortunate marketplace that we're in. And this is not, we're not the only people who are experiencing this. There's a reason that Florida Housing Finance Corp came up with a program to specifically address projects that were funded in the 2019, 2020, and 2020 round with additional credits, with additional resources because of these circumstances. Not a lot I can say about it. That we have provided you with all the facts as we know them at this point in time, and we're doing our best to address
And I don't know, and I'm not asking you to comment, but I'm assuming when I read in the paper yesterday that there is now a federal lawsuit against the Housing Authority under the Fair Housing Act, that this has something to do with this development?
So I haven't had a chance to read the document.
I'm not going to put you on.
But yes, it does have to do with Orange Avenue.
Okay, all right. I'm done. Commissioner Williams-Cox. There's no action today. You're just bringing us up to speed.
No, this is an information only, you know, we know there's quite a bit of discussion to be had from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me first of all say, let's take off the table, what we're doing here today has nothing to do with the lawsuit. That's separate and apart.
Yes.
The Tallahassee Housing Authority will have the opportunity to go to court and do what they need to do there. So that conversation has no place here. I did meet with you all. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you. And from what I understand, you're not asking us to fill a $10 million gap. You're asking us to, by August, you need a letter of commitment for some type of funding to help you in phase 2. And you need that to continue doing what you're doing. And you would not even need any funds, should it come to that, until 16, 18 months later.
Be 2024.
So we're talking down the road. You're not asking for a check today.
No.
You're not asking for one even in August. You just need a letter of commitment so you can continue to seek funding, that you have some support from the CRA should you need it to help with phase 2. Is that what I understood?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So I think that what we need to be careful of is making sure that, well, let me just go way, way back. Commissioner Richardson, I appreciate the level of work you put in to get Orange Avenue Apartments into the CRA, because it had not been.
South City.
It was South City, which includes Orange Avenue Apartments, which it had not been. And you really had to fight it tooth and nail, the commission at that time, to get it done for this very reason.
Right.
So that when the time came, we would have a funding source that we could possibly use to gather with federal dollars and other funding sources, such as the Florida Corp, that we could then do this with. I think we don't want to miss this moment. And what they are experiencing is happening all over the state of Florida. It's not unique to them. I know because I checked with my contact with the Florida Housing Corp, and they assured me that this gap is at no fault of their own. It is the market that we're in. And I've talked to a number of construction folks in our community. From the permitting process that is in place, that we have in place, to the time that they're ready to do construction, it is costing money. And heaven forbid, if something happens with the permit, that they've got to go back and redo something, the cost is still going up. And so by the time they get to be able to build, the cost is here when it was here at first, but now it's here. This is the nature of where we are right now, and we just need to understand that. And so for those of us who sit here on this board or sit on the commission or Blueprint or wherever, we just need to understand that this is the market that we're in. Yes. And in order to get our projects completed and not to forfeit all of this other funding that we've put in place, we're going to have to find ways to make it happen, because we need those apartments built. We need those folks who want to come back to be able to come back, and we've promised them that they would be. And so with a project that's 90% funded and shovel ready to move forward, that's the best opportunity for success. And I, for one, am ready to support where we can without bringing additional liability, legal liability to our organization. But we've got to do what we need to do to bring these projects to fruition. Yesterday, we cut the ribbon on the skatable park. Everybody was happy and excited. We don't know how the cost went from the time we broke the ground to that ribbon cutting yesterday. We're going to find out. But I'm sure there was an increase because supply and demand is creating this. It's a free market, and things are happening. You know, it cost me $100 to put gas in my little car at Sam's. Yeah. So everything is going up. So I think that we need to have a good expectation that everybody's doing their very best to tighten their belts. You're not coming here today asking for $10 million. You're saying that you have a $10 million funding gap. And you're not asking us for $10 million today. You're talking to the county, you're talking to whoever, the CRA, you're talking to whoever you can talk to try to find these dollars. And you have been good partners because you've gone back and done your value engineering to keep costs low. But there's some things you cannot control. And so I just want to say that, and that I want to support in every way I can, because we need low-income, affordable housing in our community. And here we have a project that's 90% there, and we just need to figure out how we can help get you on over the hump. So thank you for coming to me and explaining it to me. And I think that if you haven't had the opportunity to speak with my colleagues yet in person, I mean, you know, one-on-one, they will begin to understand also the predicament that we find ourselves in, and let's figure out how we can work together to land this plane on Orange Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got the Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Matlow, and Commissioner Porter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Williams-Cox has completely stole my thunder. But just to add to that, I recognized when I came to the commission that there were going to be opportunities. Ms. Williams and I had talked on a number of occasions about what her challenges were with the Orange Avenue apartments. We're talking a 50-year-old complex, y'all, that had all kinds of infrastructure problems. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were spending something to the tune of $150,000 monthly to cure infrastructure projects, challenges, broken pipes and backed up commodes and other projects. There was no air conditioning on the second floor of some of the apartments. And so this was really a desperate situation in my mind at the time. And so Commissioner Cox, you were right. I mean, this was one of the first projects that I took on. It took me 4 years to get approval from the CRA board, which was a city and county commission at the time, to bring South City into the CRA. And part of that was to give the Tallahassee Housing Authority some of the seed money that they needed in order to get this project off the ground and underway. And I can tell you, Ms. Williams and her staff, including Tawana and Columbia Residential, they have worked in good faith. They've been very transparent in everything that they've done from day one as good partners and wanting to make this be something that I believe, and I know others believe, will be transformative for the south side of Tallahassee. We don't have anything else like that. Magnolia Oaks come close, but this would be in addition to what we've done at Magnolia Oaks and a couple of the other projects that are already there. You know, Commissioner Williams-Cox has explained the situation that we all are familiar with that's happening now. You know, what might have cost, I talk to contractors all the time, and they tell me, you know, the plywood that might have cost, you know, $20 or $25 a sheet now is upwards of $100 a sheet. And so we know that costs are being increased, and you just can't anticipate where things are going to be sometimes from one day to the next. I can tell you my daughter, just this quick anecdote, my daughter just bought a car, and the dealer asked her to finance through their bank. The interest rate that they offered her was 7.6%. At this point in time, I bought my youngest, and I'm just giving you this as an example, I bought my youngest daughter a car not hardly 2 months ago, I think it was. It might not have even been that long ago. The interest rate was 2.9%, y'all. So that's the kind of increase that we're seeing even in that realm, but certainly in the building and construction range. And so, like I said, they have worked in good faith to make this project happen, and through no fault of their own, find themselves where they are at this point. The one thing that I do want to point out also is that Ms. Williams has committed to, Tawana, what was the percentage of MWSBE participation in this project? I mean, it was something very
The goal is 30%.
30%.
We, just so you know, in phase one, I asked for and got a report of where they stand, and they're at 22% of contracts of total contract price that have actually been let and executed for MBE participation in phase one. It looks like we're going to make the goal, which is frankly very unusual. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Everywhere we work in every state with every contractor we work with, it's very rare that you get a contractor who puts this much emphasis on it. So whatever y'all have been doing, it's working.
Yeah. And that's part of the investment that we're making into this as well. Not only the housing, which is one of our top priorities as a city and as a community, but the MWSBE support in that regard. That is hugely significant, and I think all of us realize that. And so I'm going to support this, whatever we can do, Mr. Chairman and our executive director, looking at where our budget is, that we do that, because this is significant for the residents. And it's my understanding that every resident who has been relocated will have right of first refusal if they choose.
That's correct.
To come back.
That is correct.
They will have right of first refusal if they choose to come back. I want to make that abundantly clear, because that was one of the issues brought up in what we read. The other issue is, I knew that there were 90+% of the families who had been residents had been relocated. But what you're telling us now, there are only 4 families left, 4 to be relocated. And they can take their voucher and move anywhere in the country they want to go and still get, and some have, and still get support from the Tallahassee Housing Authority using that voucher. And so, so for me, it's a no-brainer. This accomplishes what we have said we want to accomplish in terms of providing low-income housing for our residents. It supports our support of MWSBEs, and I believe, in addition to what other projects that we're going to have for that South City area, this is going to be transformative for the south side of Tallahassee. And for those reasons, I'm certainly going to support whatever we can do to see that this project continues to move forward.
Thank you. I did want to clarify something. Commissioner Williams-Cox was talking about the deficit being $10.5 million. That is the total amount. We have already applied for and expect to receive from Florida Housing Finance Corp enough to fill almost 45% of that gap. So the actual gap that we're working now to fill is $4.762 million. I think that's important because we've addressed a fairly sizable piece of the puzzle already, and we've done that through a number of different things. And then the other thing I wanted to make sure is also clear is the other point that Commissioner Williams-Cox made. We need to have a commitment in place in order to get through the Florida Housing Finance Corp final underwriting process and to their board meeting for approval in October, at the end of October. So we need to have commitments in place at the end of August in order to do that, to meet their timeline. And that gets us to a requirement to close the transaction no later than January 31st, 2023. When would we need the dollars? The dollars can come in long after that point of the closing. We can basically schedule the dollars coming into the transaction in a pretty flexible way, because we recognize that there's a sizable gap that, you know, in any 1, 2, or 3, 4 entities are going to have to fill. People are, you know, you've got your budgets, we've got our budgets. You've got to address how this flows for you, and we can be very flexible in that. The resource would have to be in the transaction at the earliest 18 months from closing, which would be at the completion of the construction, and at the latest, a portion could still come in 6 months after that, after lease up and conversion to the permanent financing. So you're talking about dollars that would actually flow into the transaction in 2024 and 2025. So hopefully that helps to as you plan, to address some of these issues. Anyway, we thank you very much for your time. We have tried to be as transparent as possible, and as we've gotten information, we've tried to bring that information to all those parties who are involved. There are numerous parties involved in these transactions, and our belief is, everybody needs the information in order to make decisions and assist in making these things happen.
Commissioner Matlow for comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I recognize the challenges you're facing because I think they're, widespread amongst anybody who's building something right now. But it's very hard for me to get anywhere near local government, providing up to 55% of the deficit as it is now. We're not a huge 50-50 partner in this project. If there's a request for 5% of the deficit or 10% of the deficit, I think that's something we could consider. But we're a very small agency at the CRA. When we talk $4 million, we're talking an annual budget. Right? That's a whole year's budget. That's everything we're doing for our neighborhoods. That's every small local business grant we're doing. That's every event. That's all the snacks going to the CAC. All of that stuff goes into our budget. So I mean, to me, a request that high is insurmountable to get to. I don't know if we're the agency to be asked. I don't know if we need to look at the scale of the project and see what other types of changes can be made to reduce expenditures. But it would be very, very hard, I think, for the CRA to close even a significant amount of that gap. We're just not that big of an agency. And secondly, as the mayor mentioned, I do have concerns about pending litigation. We don't know what will come of it. We don't know the facts of the matter, and we'll let that play out. But there have been promises about relocation efforts, and we have been told things all along throughout the project. The lawsuit would contend that maybe those things didn't execute the way we thought they would. I don't know. I'm not weighing in on that, but that does give me pause and give me room for concern. And then the third point here is government doesn't move that fast. It's hard for us to get a hard commitment by September, having to reach out to our neighborhoods, let them know what the impact of their neighborhood plans might be. Let it go to our Citizens Advisory Committee. Let them have impact. I mean, that's conversations I'm willing to explore and move forward. I just don't know how we would get to a hard vote in August from where we are now. It's a tremendous ask to be done in such a short time frame. But depending on the will of the body or what moves forward, we'll obviously entertain any requests that come forward and do it day by day. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, on point.
On point. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Thank you. I think we need to remember that there's a 4.7 gap, and they haven't asked the CRA for $4.7 million.
Right.
They're talking to the county, and they're talking to whoever will listen to try to help cover that gap. So we're not the only agency that's being spoken to about assisting. So we want to make sure, because I'm sure that our partners in the county will help with this, because Commissioner Proctor, that's his district, and you don't say no to Commissioner Proctor. Thank you.
Commissioner Porter.
Thank you. I was also going to ask that clarifying question about the amount. We were talking about 10 million, but my understanding from the letter I received was that it was that 4.7. And I mean, have you thought in conversations with the county or in your own minds what it's looking like between the city, the county, and the CRA? How you would, okay, you have not met with the county yet. Okay. And when do you expect to hear from the Florida Finance Housing Corporation about that gap funding?
So that's the sort of hitch in all of this. We've made the application. This is a new process. They just came up with it in the last, they've been working on it for several months, but it's just recently come out as a program and plan. We made our application within a week of getting the information. Now we have to meet their schedule in order to get to their board meeting in October, and that's the schedule I was talking about before. So their expectation is that by the end of August, we would have commitment letters in hand for the balance of the resource that we need to fill out our budget in order for them to utilize their external underwriting team, which has been Seltzer Management is the team we've been assigned to go through the entire package and make a recommendation to the Board of Florida Housing Finance Corp. At the end of October. At that board meeting, they would, assuming they would accept and approve the transaction, which would include the additional allocation of tax credits that's referenced in the letter and in the budget, and include all the other commitments that we have in hand to complete the project. And from there, we would have 90 days to close.
Okay, and you seem to indicate that you feel fairly confident that if the commitment on our end is made for the 45 or the 55%, that would be awarded. And I know you can't give any guarantees. Is that not a competitive process?
No, it is not a competitive process.
Okay.
It's actually the way this, excuse me, this was set up specifically to fill gaps in transactions from 2019, 2020, and 21 that have not yet closed, and address what has occurred in this very unusual marketplace that we are in.
Okay.
And so there's a high degree of probability if we can show up at the table with everything in hand at the end of August that we will, in fact, get the allocation and be put in a position to move forward. Remember that they already have a $1.7 million allocation of tax credits into the transaction. So they, like the CRA has dollars already committed into the transaction. So everyone is working basically at the same pace, subject to their timeline.
Okay. And my understanding of the lawsuit is that they are seeking, and I haven't read the whole thing, is that they are seeking an injunction against, for construction to stop. How, if that were to be granted, how might that influence the funding here, or what you would need to make up that gap? I assume that could really derail.
Well, it certainly would derail the closing, but I really can't speak to it because I don't know all the terms.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to read the document myself. I know that the authority
The
is
reason
in that process now.
Right. And the reason I ask is just that is, if my understanding is correct, that could certainly affect it. Although it is separate, it could affect it, as far as my understanding of it.
So, the best answer I could give you, and I'm not party to this piece to the puzzle. This is all between the authority and the person who has, entity who has made the claim. The property went through a master planning process that some of you actually participated in that took about a year. Over 150 individuals were involved in that process. That was part of a process to get HUD approval and sanction for relocation and for demolition of the buildings. That process is extremely well documented. It is easy to prove that residents participated in the process along with neighborhood folks and stakeholders,
Right, and I want to be clear, I'm not litigating, I'm not even trying to argue any of the merit of anything that's in that. I'm just asking, if an injunction is granted, where are we,
Well, if an
what is the
injunction is
impact?
granted, it would stop the project.
Okay.
Costs would continue to climb.
Right. Excuse me?
And the cost would continue
to climb.
And costs will
potentially,
continue
right,
to
okay.
escalate, yes.
Okay.
Would be without housing.
You know, I mean, but all I can say to you is that the process by which decisions were made and approvals were granted for us to be where we are today was a completely transparent process that involved numerous people, residents included, followed the letter of the law, or we wouldn't have gotten the HUD approvals that were
Right.
necessary to even get to where we are today.
We appreciate you coming today. and
Thank
giving us
you.
the update.
And then just one question for staff, or, you know, as far as the timing is concerned, I heard August, I heard September, and we have one more city commission meeting, and I don't think any more CRA meetings scheduled until that time. So that's something that I'm sure we'll figure out, you know, how to deal with, but I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have another speaker for unagended items.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. We actually have two.
Okay.
Christy Vaughn and Mr. Wes Townsend. Name and address for the record, please.
Your name and address for the record, please. You can go ahead.
Hi. Well, after all this heavy business today, mine should be pretty easy, so.
Yeah. Christy, could you give us that again and
Your name
for the
and
mic
address,
for the
yeah.
record?
Oh, sorry. All right. So good morning, Mayor, Mr. Cox, Commission, and staff.
Your name and address again, in the microphone.
My name is Christy Vaughn. We're located at 241 Lake Ella. And I'm here representing Veterans, Inc., which is for the parade for this year's funding. And we were asking, or we wanted to request the CRA to match Leon County's annual contribution of $5,000 for parade funding.
Thank you. Yeah, if you recall, colleagues, this was the item that came before us at the City Commission. We paid for this out of the CRA. I would entertain a motion to bring back an item for for consideration. Okay. It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Williams Cox. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Excellent. So what'll happen is it'll be an agenda item at the next meeting. And I did not hear any major opposition. So
For our veterans.
It should be a fun day for everyone. So.
well, y'all do a great parade. For Veterans Day, we parade and everything. Colleagues, I'd like to go out on a limb because I'm sure that they're going through their budget and planning process, that while it does need to be formally ratified, I am personally comfortable with you including that $5,000 in your budget for purposes moving forward. I'm just, you know, before there'll be a formal ratification, obviously, at the next meeting, though.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Welcome aboard.
All right, our next speaker.
Mr. Wes Townsend.
Mr. Chairman and board members, my name is Wes Townsend. I am the Vice President of Development for McKibben Places. My address is 1830 Hadfield Boulevard, Roswell, Georgia. My purpose today is to introduce this potential project here in the core of downtown Tallahassee and to gauge your level of interest in supporting the project as we go forward. The subject property is the block bounded by Tennessee Street, Monroe, Call, and Adams, where the Aloft Hotel is located. Some of you may recall that the City of Tallahassee issued an RFP many years ago for the development of this block, and we responded to that RFP, purchased the Aloft site, and secured a long-term lease on the lower portion of the lot. The property that's bordered there along Adams, that rectangular space is one lot, and the smaller rectangular space to the top right is a second lot, both controlled by the city. We pay on the long-term lease on the lower lot, and then we have a month-to-month lease for that upper right portion. What we propose to do, this is the program, would be to construct 158 residential units on the property, a 400-space parking deck, which would be privately owned, providing parking for the residents as well as for the Aloft Hotel and for others. Of those 400 spaces, many of them would be available during the day for use by the federal court and other users in the immediate area. We lease spaces to those folks today on the surface lot. There's some retail on the hard corner of Monroe and Tennessee. This is something that was anticipated by the Planning Commission and the city fathers way back in the beginning when this project was originally contemplated. The master plan on the project, it's part of a PUD that exists today, so there would have to be a rezoning in addition to any CRA participation. And the plan for that corner today, as it exists, is for office. We tried to do office way back when. At the time, there was not a lot of movement in the office market in Tallahassee, not a lot of new office tenants moving in either. So we couldn't get enough commitments to get financing to build that office, and it never has happened. Just real quickly, these are some schematics that we've put together for how this would work. This is the lower level of the parking lot. And see what happens as we go up. We're now at the street level on Monroe. You see the retail on the hard corner and the arrival zone for the residences. Another parking level up, and then you get to the residential units. There'll be an amenity level located in a great spot.
I'm going to need you to wrap up your comments, please.
And there's a cross section so you can kind of see. We have an ask or request that the CRA consider participation. We think likely in the form of consideration related to contribution of the land. We pay $12,000 a month now for parking between these two lots and or TIF funding.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Question.
Williams-Cox.
The multifamily development, is that affordable housing? Or is that market rate housing, low income housing? What's the plan?
The plan is market rate. We certainly are aware that affordable housing is a priority for the city. We're willing to look at that in terms of how we could incorporate that within the project. We need to understand the parameters that we're dealing with, though, in terms of the overall package, in terms of financing, including potential CRA participation. And then I think we can feed back to you on a pro forma basis what that might look like. There's ways to deal with it, not just in terms of percentage of AMI, but also physically in terms of the units themselves. This plan contemplates about an average of 900 to 1,000 square feet per unit between 1 and 2 bedrooms. Obviously, you could do something smaller than that, which would drive down the rate for the individual unit. There's a number of ways to get at something that would be a win-win situation for the city and us.
So what is the anticipated market rate?
Market rate, they're approaching, we're doing studies now, we're updating our pro formas, but the market has been in the $1.60, 70 cents per foot range in terms of what market is. There are many markets now where the rents are approaching $2 per foot. Everything that's been said today is true for us as well in terms of construction costs, interest rate increases, rent increases.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our next speaker.
That concludes the speaker cards that I have.
All right. Anybody else here or did not get a chance to fill out a speaker card that'd like to address the CRA? All right. We will move to commissioner discussion. Anybody like to start us off? Commissioner Porter?
I don't have anything. Thank
Okay.
you. That was a lot.
We'll just go down the line. Commissioner Williams-Cox?
I see Elizabeth Emanuel in the room. That means there must be something happening this weekend downtown. Can she
Please
come tell us?
come to the microphone, please.
Elizabeth Emanuel, 300 West Pensacola. I appreciate the opportunity to share with everyone. We have a great concert coming up this weekend on Saturday in the brand newly named, is it Adderley Amphitheater? I want to get that wrong, but that is a very exciting opportunity to host our community for a free concert featuring the Lee Boys. For those of you that may not know, they are a recent recipient of the Department of State Florida Folk Heritage Music Award. They are a steel ensemble from Miami. They are absolutely excellent. When they were here 3 years ago, it was one of the most fun concerts we have ever had, so we are excited to welcome them back, along with local talent JB Zydeco Zoo from 7 to 10 p.m. So we hope to see all of you and all of you there this weekend.
All right, I'll be there.
Be there, be square.
Great. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned earlier, I think, a policy discussion about spending future funds. I wanted to tag on to that. I've had discussions with Mr. Cox about a policy as we see more smaller developments and more grant asked than we have previously, looking at putting parameters in place percentage-wise of what can be requested, how much per project. If it's a bank loan that requires 80%, we don't put in 20%. We're either matching what the applicant's bringing to the table, and that could, to me, that could be a sliding scale depending on the size and what we want to see. But I think we need to flesh that out and have it in. I don't want to get into a position down the road where the CRA may be putting in most of what's required to secure a loan with very little from somebody coming to the table, and I just want to flesh that out.
If you will make that motion for that policy discussion to come back, I'd be more than happy to second it, and I think you've captured some of my thoughts as well all in one. Are we clear, Mr. Cox?
A motion to do all that stuff.
All right. Motion on the table made by Commissioner Matlow, seconded by the mayor. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes 5-0. Commissioner Matlow.
That's all today. Thank you.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem.
The only thing I wanted to request, and we don't have to go into an extensive discussion about it this morning, but I'm curious to know what the status of the Frenchtown project is being proposed by Mr. Brown.
I've been in talks with him over the last couple of weeks. He was not able to get a commitment for a major grocer. The grocer indicated that because of cost of construction, they're delaying all new construction for a couple of years. But he did have a letter indicating that they were quite interested in the site. So, that was, kind of a blow.
That's a big blow.
Yeah. So he is trying to secure the tax credits. He's looking for another round to apply to try to get the 9% tax credits. And he's hoping that they get it this time. But as of right now, kind of in a holding pattern. They have talked about the CRA site, but there's a lot of discussions about the Bethel site, which was Site B in the larger project, because that is slope is less on that. That is more desirable than the CRA site. So a lot of the proposals, are shifting the residential to that site instead of our site, which we control now. The Bethel site we don't control. And as of right now, he doesn't control it either. So that is part of the conversation we've been having is, securing that land on his part before costs increase. So again, we're waiting as of right now.
Mr. Chair, on point.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we ask that at the next CRA meeting that we get an update?
Yes, ma'am.
On where we are.
Yeah.
Formal update on where we are.
Yeah, and also, Mr. Mayor, since I'm speaking, Mayor Pro Tem reminded me of where are we with the $1.8 million for the CRE? Yeah, well, it was TLHRs, but we are now looking at an application process because the county chose not to do that for us. So where are we on doing that? Because I am really interested in getting that money in our community. It's been eluding us for a number of years, and so.
I agree.
The intention is for that to be on the agenda for September, for you all to approve that process.
Okay.
So we can move forward. But that is the plan we're working on, updating the guidelines right now to get something in front of you.
All right, thank you.
Great. All right, Mayor Pro Tem?
That's all I had.
I've got nothing else. Everyone, enjoy your day. Stand adjourned.